Yes, that's right. We are live. You can check us out. So just so everybody's clear before we open up the microphones here, no last name and no place of work because he doesn't want to be inundated by people looking for emails and interview requests and all that jazz. But John Creasel's here. Mark Parrish just walked in.
Hi.
Thank you.
Parrish.
Thank you for the Diet Coke. Appreciate you very much.
John, Mark, John.
All right. And sitting over there, lovely listeners to the Power Trip Morning Show. His name is Cale. And welcome to the show. Thank you for coming in. We appreciate it very much. And, I say this every day to start the show. I'm glad you're here.
Yeah, well, thank you.
That's Cale, everybody.
I'm very glad to be here as well.
You could easily be dead.
Hey, thanks for bringing that up.
That's
getting to the point.
If you don't know, that's Corey. Not a lot of people survive plane crashes, though, right? Normally that ends badly. You now can say you are a plane crash survivor.
Yeah, I can, and I'm very glad it didn't end the bad way.
Yeah, so I'd like to, if you don't mind, start from the very beginning and talk about everything that happened that day. And I believe this is the first time you've told your story. I can't imagine it's easy to tell this story. I asked you before you went in there, are you a very good flyer? And you said you are notoriously not a good flyer.
Oh, man, this isn't going to help.
That's not good as well. But Cale was on the plane that left Minneapolis on Monday and landed in Toronto in the bad weather. Everybody saw it, flipped upside down, caught on fire. But before we get to the juicy part, let's just start it right there. Were you flying to Toronto on business? Why were you going there?
Yeah, I was flying to Toronto on business. I've never been there. First time to Canada. I fly for business, I don't know, every couple months. So not a regular business traveler, but, my wife and I, we fly all the time. So we, always on planes. I'm always kind of the nervous one. I want to get to the airport 4 hours before the plane goes. Yes, I want to be at my gate, make sure it exists. I'm one of those guys. But that day, everything, seemed mostly regular. There was a little bit of maintenance delay when we were going to take off. So, at the time, it didn't seem like anything. It probably is still nothing, right? It probably was unrelated, but that happens all the time. So otherwise, it was just a normal winter flight out of Minneapolis.
Including when you were about to land. It seemed like everything was completely normal. Didn't feel the plane doing anything abnormal.
No, I mean, I knew I had checked the weather in Toronto. I knew it was a little breezy, cold like it was here. When we were starting to make our descent, they told us, it's a little breezy, so, might be a little bumpy. But, again, nothing unusual, right? I mean, we fly to Vegas quite often, and it's always bumpy coming into there. So, it seemed no big deal, right? And yeah, it just seemed like a normal flight. I was listening to the show. I think I was podcasting the Monday show. So it was Zach and Max doing the show. I think that had ended. So then I had listened to Friday's initials game was going on, and yeah, seemed like a normal flight.
Think if the last thing on earth you heard was Max and Zach filling in on what our boss called Martin Luther King Jr.
Yeah.
Oh my Lord.
The guy next to me afterward, when I found him later, he goes, "What were you listening to on the plane?" And I'm like, "Well, the Power Trip Morning Show." He's like, "Oh, it must have been pretty funny." So they did a good show, I guess.
Wow. So, all right. So let's move into the actual, you know what? I won't even interrupt you. Just do me a favor. From the moment you're almost touching to the ground and to the moment that you realize you're hanging upside down, can you take me through that? Is that possible?
Yeah, I'll do the best I can. Okay. I will say there's parts of it that like everything happens so fast that, and I'm sure there's part of the brain that's like, don't remember that, forget that. So I'll do the best I can. So as we were coming down, right, it seemed fine. Didn't, as a passenger, couldn't tell that anything was unusual. I did have my shade open because I like to watch on the way in, and it was a clear day, right? So you could see everything. But right as we hit, it was immediate that we were on our, tipped on our side, right? And with being next to the window, I could see what at the time I thought were sparks. Like it reminded me like when you're a kid and you kind of drag a rock on blacktop and there's sparks. Mm-hmm. That's what I thought it was at the time. I obviously and afterward have seen the videos where it was a gigantic fireball, but it looked like just sparks. But I knew okay, this is not good. But in my head at the time, I thought maybe we would just sort of finish that way, right? Like tipped over or tipped on the side, but we would just come to a stop and, get out of the plane. And okay, that wasn't great, but we're here. But then very quickly, like the cabin went dark, all the lights were out, and it was just, we were thrown around, jostled around so much that I really didn't even know at that point, like which direction was up. When we came to a stop, I did not even know that we were upside down at first, because it, like, imagine you're in a dark roller coaster and you're just kind of spinning around. Like, you don't really know which way is which. So I just remember then once we stopped, my first thought was, I have to get out of my seat. I have to get out of here. So I immediately went to unlatch my buckle. I think because of the way the plane was, I sort of used the wall to kind of drop and not like just land on my head. That part is like, I don't have a great remembrance of being upside down. I know on whatever day it was, Zach like really wanted to know what was it like hanging upside down. Yeah. I don't have a super great remembrance of that because it happened so fast and I just wanted to get out of my seat. I do remember though, seeing other people hanging upside down, right? And during this whole time, as I told Chris the other day, the guy next to me kept saying like, it's going to be okay. We're going to be okay. And I don't know if he could tell I was freaking out or if that was him trying to just calm himself down too, but he kept saying, we're going to be okay. It's going to be okay. So after I unbuckled, as I was coming down, I lost my shoe. It got caught on something. And when I then got upright, I was like fixated on where's my shoe? I need my shoe. I don't know why, but that was like, I was just I need my shoe. Some guy on my left side picked up my shoe. I got it at the same, like during all this, I was helping the guy next to me, like unbuckle and get down. I know people around were helping each other. Like in this crazy chaotic moment, the amount of help and support that like all the passengers were giving to each other was incredible. Like awesome. Everybody was helping each other unbuckle, get upright. When we got upright, then there was a lot of like trying to find things on the ground, right? So my phone had flown somewhere. I eventually got it back later, but people were trying to find their phones. There was a number of people that had glasses that were gone, right? So they're trying to find their glasses. And, this whole time, then at this point, it felt like everything was taking forever. The news said it was, by the time this happened to when we got out, was 90 seconds. I have no idea if that was true or not.
Felt like a lot longer than that.
It felt like forever. And when, as we're trying to grab stuff, as we could start to smell the jet fuel, that was really where panic really started to set in. At least for me, that was where I was like, okay, this is super serious that like we can smell jet fuel. Yeah. Everything is starting to, smell like jet fuel. And then you could hear people like, is someone getting the door? We have to get out of here. We have to get out of here. And that part specifically, I know felt like forever, just the jet fuel smell and just, we're not moving. Where are we going to go?
By the way, sorry to cut you off. How much darkness is in this moment? You said it was dark.
It was dark, yeah.
So do you have any idea of who is seriously hurt at this point?
No.
So how are those people being helped if nobody can even, see where they're going?
I don't know how many of those people even knew they were hurt. I'm just speculating, but there was so much adrenaline that like I didn't feel, now a couple days later, body's sore, right? I didn't go skiing yesterday, so I don't know how that is, but
yeah, it's been a really rough 24 hours for me. You should see my back.
But everything felt great at the time. So I don't know if those people knew. It was dark though. I could probably see the row to my right, the row to my left. I don't even think I could really see across the aisle because it was really bright, and so most people did have their shades down. And there's literally no lights on in the plane. I know they say like, if the lights go out, though, you'll find the well, I'm sure the walkway in theory was, lit up enough, but that was the ceiling right? Yeah. So it wasn't enough to illuminate the plane.
Where were you on the plane? How far back?
I was in in Comfort Plus. I got upgraded. I was in Comfort Plus.
Oh, must be nice, Cale.
Yeah. Closer to the front.
Closer to the front. Yeah. So, the point then where I was I thought, okay, maybe this is going to be okay is when I felt the cold air. So I knew at that point someone had opened the door and like there's freedom. Maybe we can get out of here. And again, I don't really know how much time it was from when I felt the cold air before when I started to move and get out, but that part definitely felt shorter. And I think it was just like, we're going to do this. We're going to get out. The flight attendants, I know, I could hear one of them. They kept saying, leave your bags. Don't turn on your phones. Just keep moving. And at some point, I had a backpack and then a carry-on. My backpack was in my arms. I don't know if I picked it up, if it fell. I don't know, but I had it, and I'm like, I'm not letting go of this. This is coming with me.
Well, you have it in your hands.
Yeah,
already,
I have it.
Yeah, it's not going to take you additional time to find it. That's fair.
And so then it was just kind of waiting as people were, again, chaotic, but sort of in a calm way, single file, like just follow the person in front of you out. When I got to the door, then the flight attendants are like, you're going to have to push the person in front of you. And I say that because, if you think about the plane, the ceiling is, slanted. Well, now that's the floor and it's slanted upward. Mm-hmm. Plus there's jet fuel coming down it. So it was very slippery.
Oh, boy.
And so when that lady said that, I took it to heart, and I don't know who was in front of me, but I'm like, I'm giving you
push.
Yeah, that's what it was. I mean, it was push them, and then the ground was a bit slippery, but I got my footing, and then it was jump out, and there was the first couple passengers that got out. Thank God for them. They were there, out, staying right by the plane, grabbing arms, helping people down out of the plane. I know a couple of them, once the fire department came in, they were spraying the chemicals and stuff. I mean, they got doused. They had to, a couple of them pretty bad, right? But I mean, that was one of the things when I've been reading articles and rightfully so, they're talking about the crew and how they're heroes and all this stuff. One thing that I was telling my wife last night, it bothers me a little bit that, like, yes, those people are heroes, but there were normal passenger people that were also heroes, helping people off the plane, helping each other. Like, I'm not putting myself in that category. I didn't really do much, but, stand there and follow the line. But there were people that, as others are running away, to get away from the plane, they stood there and they didn't know if the plane was going to blow up or what. And they just kept helping. And, those people are really, need to be thanked. And I don't know who they are, but I thank them. And, but yeah, so we jumped out, and there was a fire truck, I don't know, maybe 60, 100 yards down the runway that we ran to try to get out of the wind, because there's, 40 mile an hour gusts. It's Toronto in winter. It's not warm out. Most people didn't have jackets. Some are just in t-shirts, right? I think there was one guy in shorts, if I remember right. So it's cold. We got out, we kind of huddled, and couldn't believe what in the world just happened.
Again, if you're just tuning in, you don't know what's going on. That's Cale. Cale is a Power Trip listener who was on the plane that flipped in Toronto last Monday, the Minneapolis flight. And he's telling us his story. And he lost his shoe, which seems to happen in every accident of every kind I've ever heard of. We can go around the room and ask questions as well. And well done telling the story, by the way. That's unbelievable. My one question that I guess I haven't even thought of until now: were there any children on the flight?
Yeah, great question. There was one child, and I think if I remember right, somebody helped carry that child off. They were about 6 years old, give or take, but it was the only one. And I do think, in hindsight, that probably helped the speed of us getting off. Right? I mean, yes, adults are in shock, and we're what just happened, but we're also sort of, everyone was capable of walking off the plane, where had there been more kids, it probably would have taken longer. So, that day there was a ton of business travelers that probably helped us to get off that plane.
So you mentioned that you saw the sparks but didn't see the flames until you saw the videos after you were, a day later or something.
Yeah.
Did you feel the heat? Could you feel...
Wasn't there an explosion?
Yes, I could feel the heat. And again, I think in my head, I thought, well, this is like just from
the sparks.
The sparks and like dragging on the ground, right? But yes, I could feel the heat. It wasn't like, touching a fire, but it was definitely warm. The wall was warm. I mean, I didn't get burned or anything, but I definitely could feel the heat. There was then, once we were all off the plane and the fire department was there was then an explosion type thing in the plane. I don't know how many minutes that was after. I don't know what caused it, whether it was something they were doing or just that was when it decided to go. But thankfully everybody was off. And there's a video I saw yesterday for the first time of that explosion after, where the two firemen are like diving out of, so they must have known this was coming because they're diving out of the plane and kind of rolling and running away. So thankfully we were out by that point.
Insane.
Would you ever get on a plane again?
Yeah. We have a flight to New Orleans in May, which is my goal, to be able to get on the plane. I've already started through work where, the employee assistance programs to set up seeing, therapists and counselor stuff. Cause we do travel a lot, and I do travel for work, and I want to keep doing that. So the goal is to be able to do that by May.
Or you're going about it the right way, because talking about it, they had me on after I lost my legs in Iraq. And this was the first time I really talked about it in detail, and it's healing. And and the fact that you're able to do this shows you're doing the right thing. You're on the right path. It'll take a minute, but stick with it. It's insane.
So speaking of talking it out and in kind of accepting it in your own mind, I saw the video almost immediately after of that guy. I don't think it was you, the guy that just filmed himself walking away, and he just kept saying, "I was on that bleeping plane." I would and it sounded like he had to say it out loud to have his brain process that that's the plane I was just on. I survived it. I was on that bleeping plane. He just kept saying it. How long did it take you to really, truly walk away from it and go how am I alive right now? That should have been it. Hours?
Great question.
Are you even there yet, maybe?
I don't know. I mean, once we got off and I had someone else's phone that I picked up, someone somehow picked up mine, and, then I was able to call my wife and, text friends that, I'm alive and I'm okay and I'm not hurt. I don't know if I probably haven't fully processed it. I mean, I totally get we're very lucky we're here. That isn't a normal thing that would have ended that way. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, that's a great question. I'm sure that's something we'll be talking about.
I can imagine. If you don't mind, Christina, I know you can. Could you slide over and share the mic for a moment? This is Cale's wife. And again, if you're just tuning in, and you can see us at KFAN.com/watch as well. Christina, I don't know if she can hear my question or not. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Just take sauces.
Or I can leave because I got to go to work anyway.
Go anyway.
That's right. You can have my seat. Love you guys. Go to my website. Hear me speak.
Love you,
JohnCriesel.com.
There goes Johnny K.
There he goes.
JohnCriesel.com.
And there he goes. John Criesel on his way out. So because I think this is I obviously, as hard as it was for Cale. Christina, thank you for jumping on the mic. I know it didn't tell you you were going to do this. Usually it freaks people out if I tell them first, so I thought I'd just spring this on you. Did you hear about the plane crash first, or did you hear about it first from your husband?
I heard about it first from him. He called me and left me a voicemail with his boss's phone because he didn't know where his was and he couldn't get service yet. But I had a voicemail and I was on a call for work, and when your voicemail tries to write what someone said.
Yeah.
It's okay, I love you. I'm okay, I love you. And I'm like, what the fuck?
Got it. Now, you know what? That's the perfect use of that word, though. In that sentence, I would guess.
It's standard on this show for wives to swear.
Yeah, that's true.
My wife she swore faster than you did. I think she still has the record, so don't worry about it.
But
she's never been back on.
It's terrifying. But I think, too, he didn't want me to read about it online or hear about it anywhere else. So I think his first response was, I have to tell her myself before she sees something and goes, wait, is that the same plane or whatever? So he told me right away, and then I couldn't get a hold of him. So I'm like, okay, this sucks. Oh. But
wow.
But I was like, okay, they're alive. They're outside of the plane. I will just be patient because this can't possibly be an easy thing for anybody to figure out. Delta, the airport, anybody to figure out what do we do with these people now? Because like you said, this doesn't normally happen.
Yeah.
So.
Cale, I don't know if you can even talk about this or not, or if you're wanting to, but we all know we've debated it on this show about the $30,000 you've been offered. Did they throw that at you yet? Do you have it in your bank account? Are you guys going to Vegas tomorrow? Or is that something you've been told not to do? Do you mind me asking you about that and what your procedure is going to be?
Yeah, that's fine. Obviously it's in the news. We've been told about it. So, when Delta called and talked about that, they made it clear, like, this is no strings attached. Like, this doesn't prohibit future payments, litigation, whatever. I want to have someone that's a lot smarter than me, though, read it, make sure that there's no fine print somewhere that's
good idea
doing whatever. So, they did set up a program where they can, put it into account and then eventually you'll get it. And if you don't do that, then they'll just mail you a check. So I'm probably just going to let them mail me a check and, take care of it when the time is right. Like, there's no rush on it from our standpoint. And, not that we're trying to, I don't think anybody that was on that flight is looking for a money grab by any means, but there's also this realization that, like, if one thing goes differently, we're all dead.
Unreal.
Right.
It's
and so,
traumatic.
And we don't know what the next, 50 years of life is going to hold as far as what might trigger in our minds or what, when that'll happen. Right. So, so we're just going to kind of play everything just slow and just a day at a time here and work through it that way.
Cale will break in a moment, but you were driven home. Is that correct?
Yeah. I had no interest in getting right back on the same size plane and coming back to Minneapolis. I definitely wanted to get back to Minneapolis, but not that way. And Delta, I will say, was absolutely fantastic once we got off the plane and they were, trying to coordinate this. They have a whole care team that, people flew in from all over the country to come to help us. And so they helped coordinate getting us driving me and my boss home. They had trouble finding someone that would get us across the border, like a professional driving company. Like, getting across the border was a tough thing. What ended up happening is a gentleman, Patrick, and I know he's obviously not listening, but he was fantastic to us. He was a Delta employee from Detroit that flew in and was, like, there to help for whatever. And he's like, well, I could just drive him.
Crazy.
And so they're like, really? He's like, yeah. So he rented a big SUV and he took us to Chicago on Tuesday, and then we stayed the night in Chicago, and then on Wednesday, then a professional driving service took us from Chicago home.
Do you have any idea what percentage of the plane did this and how many actually got right back on a plane to go wherever they needed to go?
I don't, because the way that they handled getting people where they needed to go on Monday night, a lot of people their final destination was Toronto for business, and they already had hotels. So they went to those hotels that they already had. I had a hotel room like 2 hours away. We were flying in and then driving to where one of our facilities is. So we didn't have a room, and there was 7 of us that didn't have a room. We were all going somewhere else from Toronto. So we kind of stuck together. And so I know what all of them were doing. From that standpoint, 2 of us drove, 5 of them flew. For all the other, 70 people, or I guess 20 of them were from Toronto, so they probably were good. But the other than 40 or whatever the math is, I know some did drive. I know there was an article about a guy that drove home, but I don't know what the mix was. I don't know how they got home, if they rented a car. Delta was adamant that we were not driving ourselves. They, probably from a liability standpoint of if we're not in the right mental state, but they were adamant we were not driving home ourselves.
His name is Cale. Wow. His lovely wife is Christina. He's good enough to come in and tell us about the harrowing ordeal he went through on Monday with flipping upside down in a plane that landed in Toronto. Right.
I just asked you during the break, you have kids. Mm-hmm. And how did those kids process the fact that their dad almost died in a plane crash?
Yeah, our daughter, I'm not sure. She didn't ask much. I think the fact that I was there and you look fine. I don't know if she said she hadn't seen any of the videos, so I don't know if she fully understood, like, did we just, hit a couple bumps and whatever, but
sure.
I told both kids, then ask any questions as you might have them. And then my son, he had a lot of questions about, like, how many people were hurt and were there kids on the plane and, like, how badly were they hurt? Like, he was very empathetic about that part of it. He's had a lot more questions and, just some curiosities, but I want, to them, I want to make sure that they can fly again with us when we, visit grandpa and grandma or, whatever it is. Right. So I think they're both good, but again, we'll kind of take it a day at a time as we go forward.
Well, we also purposely waited to tell them until he got home.
Ooh.
Like, I didn't want to be like, well, then where is he? When's he coming home? Because I didn't know the answer. So I'm like,
smart.
Yeah.
We're waiting until you can see his face, and then we'll tell you.
Yeah.
Cale, again, in case you're just tuning in, was on the plane that flipped upside down in Toronto. Have you watched the video? I'm guessing you have. And second of all, did the plane landing feel especially hard? I know you're saying it happened so fast and suddenly you're on your side, but did it seem like, oh my God, we just hit so hard?
Yes, I have seen videos. I mean, I've seen probably most of them once, and that's enough. I've read more articles than videos about, like, the safety and the things that the plane had that kept us here and how we're here, right? So that was more interesting to me than continuing to watch the videos of something that I experienced firsthand. I saw it, I've seen enough. Did we know that it was a hard landing? I don't think I really, like, that went through my mind because it was immediately that we were on our side. And that was oh boy, this isn't ideal that we're not upright and just a nice, smooth coasting in, right? So I don't think I really noticed that it was a hard landing or anything. It was just immediately, this isn't good.
Right. At what point did you know for sure that there was no, excuse me for being so graphic, I guess, but at what point did you realize there was nobody on the plane that had passed?
I guess when we got out of the plane and were huddled behind this fire engine, there was many paramedics and firemen counting us. And I know there were a couple times, the first couple counts, because people are moving, people are, moving around, whatever, like the counts were off a little bit, but there was never really a thought in my head that, well, someone might be dead on there. I kind of was like, because everybody because I walked out, maybe that was an incorrect assumption, but I just kind of assumed we all got out.
Go ahead, Mark.
What is the process like of processing this besides reading the articles? It's not the kind of situation where you're exchanging numbers with someone, but I would imagine there are people on that plane who need to talk about this with other people who were on that plane. How do you maintain contact or get contact in the first place?
Yeah, so I mentioned the 7 of us that didn't have a hotel room that Delta then put us in a hotel. So we were together then pretty much all Monday night and Tuesday morning. And so when we ate dinner, and I say ate, we really just kind of looked at our food in front of us. We did exchange phone numbers. We have each other's names. We've been texting a little bit here and there, kind of like informational stuff like, oh, Delta called. And as an example, my bag is supposedly showing up today, right? So we just have been kind of keeping in contact on major things, but at dinner and at breakfast, we all talked about what we remembered, what we went through, how we were feeling. We made a lot of jokes, right? You try to laugh and, we're thankful we're alive and that we can make jokes with each other. And, so I think we'll have that. I don't expect us to be, texting forever. We did talk about, like, when we're all kind of settled, like, let's go out for happy hour and just kind of regroup and talk and stuff. So we have, at least the 7 of us have that. I don't know what other people will have or, we'll be able to do, but our little group has that. And so we'll use that as we need.
Cale.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
I
Go
got to
ahead,
turn my
Mark.
mic on. Excuse me about that. Hey, Cale. I've just been wondering about the whole customs issue. Like, when I travel, my passport's in my bag up above me, not on me as a person. So either way, you have to get back into a country, whether you're going into Canada or you're coming back to the U.S. How was there any difficulty in that, or did everybody just happen to have their passport?
Yeah, great question. No, so I did have mine. Mine was in my backpack. I had my wallet, car keys, things that you usually don't think about, like, well, I'm going to need this on me when we, roll down the runway. But I did have mine, but a lot of people had literally nothing, no phone, no wallet, no passport. People didn't have contacts, classes, like all that stuff. So as far as getting in and out of the country, Delta was working with the customs people to make sure people could get back and forth, right? So like when we were driving across, both me and my boss had our passports, so it wasn't an issue, but they had already spoken with one of the border areas that if we didn't have them, we were going to go through a specific one that knew that of what had happened and so that we could get through. My assumption is at the airport, there was very heavy coordination to make sure that these people could get where they needed to go because they didn't have, not everybody had their passport.
Cale, it's a hell of a story, and we appreciate you taking the time to come in. Getting your email was just unbelievable, and I will say this too. I'm glad that you're taking care of yourself because I think there's a lot of people out there who would try to shake this off and act as if it didn't affect them much. For those of us who've been in situations before where you thought you might lose your life, it hits you at the moment. It hits you more the night after. It hits you more the day after that. I hope you're doing okay, man. I can tell that this really, obviously, I can tell it's affecting you, and I hope you continue to take care of yourself, man.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's, like I said, we've already been working on setting up, therapy and just to make sure that mentally we can fly again and, get through everything. Thus far, I've been good. Been able to mostly sleep at night, not waking up jarred or anything. But, the morning I emailed you, I think I was in Chicago and laying in bed, and that day I wasn't sleeping, but I was like, well, I'm up and the power trip's starting soon, so might as well throw that on. And I think, like I said, when every morning when you do the, I'm glad you're here, it just hit me a little bit that day. And I just wanted to, let you guys know that, I know you're a radio show and you do, funny jokes and some sports. And I'm not even a Minnesota sports fan. I'm from Wisconsin. I'm Packer fan, Brewer fan, right? But I've been listening to the show for 15 years, and through all the ups and downs of life, this show has always been there for a laugh and to take your mind off things, and that's what it did for me on Monday night, Tuesday morning, Wednesday morning, and I just appreciate that you guys are here to do that sort of thing for 3 hours a day.
Well, Delta has offered you $30,000, but Meat Sauce would like to give you an autographed 7th Avenue pizza, courtesy of the Power Trip Morning Show and iHeartRadio.
Wow. Yeah. And it's unbelievable.
Congrats.
And strangely as well, we're going to fly you to Vegas too. No, I'm kidding on that. But,
by the way, that pizza is no strings attached too.
Well, I'm going to then make it and we'll split it. But
perfect.
Yeah, he's going to eat some of it.
It's 90-10.
Yeah. Christina and
amazing
Cale,
story.
Like Marty's hair.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And,